The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.
Good evening. We're live again with the Scottish Football Social Club here on Premier Sports, live on YouTube and X as well, and in association with McBookie after a top flight weekend in which we saw 21 goals in 6 matches, 6 of them live in Premier Sports. So only fitting then that we've got Michael Stewart and Alan Hutton on the show this week. And I did a bit of research, and this is uncanny, who scored 21 goals between them in just short of 600 career appearances. Alan, what a return that is.
I probably only got about 2, so the rest is for you, Mikey. That was a shocker.
Mikey, you got a few.
Sure
can you remember any trundlers from you that registered from outside the box?
I can't. I'm terrible at remembering, Daryl. Although I do remember scoring a volley once.
I'm not happy with these openings. How we're just getting stitched up every time.
I couldn't believe it. Honestly, when I did my research, I thought, you can't 21. You can't beat that. What about you, Al? Come on, Al. You scored from the halfway line once.
Yeah, that was more fluke than design, I would say. I was looking to pass it or cross it or do something about 8 times. I just ended up in the box, which worked out well. So
it did. By the way, what a goal that was.
It's not bad.
We can maybe
talk
about
that down a bit, Daryl.
What's that?
He's playing it down. Score for halfway line.
I know it was good. Don't get me wrong. I just don't like talking about it all the time. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just it's one of those things. It is what it is.
You just rather Daryl and I talk about it.
Exactly, and I'll just stay in the background and listen.
An iconic Villa moment, by the way.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, talking about you going to stadiums and the receptions you get when you go back there, I know it's always good. How was it in Perth at the weekend for you?
I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit worried, but I was well looked after, I must admit. Our point was just in front of the main stand. Everything was good. No problems whatsoever. And watched the game. Perfect.
Mikey, did you sort him out again?
He was fine. They love him. They all love him.
Remember, I was with Big Charlie. So if I was ever in doubt, I was just kind of ducking in behind his jacket. He had this big, huge jacket on. So I was just ducking in behind that. But it was fine. No problem.
Excellent. Well, let's start there, Michael, because you were there too. And Celtic were sensational, weren't they?
I mean, just incredible. And obviously, for the first half an hour or so, St Johnstone defended okay. Of course, Celtic were dominant, but after they managed to get their noses in front, they really just didn't let up at all. And some of the goals, as you can see here, sublime. The link-up play, the interchange, the movement, and the finishing. It was absolutely top class from Celtic. And Alan was just talking about how enjoyable it was to watch that level of performance.
Oh, this guy, every time. No, I must admit, that's the first time that I've seen Celtic live in a long period of time, especially not being against Rangers. And it was interesting speaking to the manager after, because the way they lined up and the way St Johnstone lined up, they kept on trying to put little balls in behind them, and it was really working for like Zakun and Maeda to get into space. And they were saying that's what they were looking to do. Let's see these wee dink balls over the top. But see, when St Johnstone did defensively do well at the first maybe 20 minutes, although they were only defending, you just felt watching it that Celtic had 2 or 3 gears to go through, and they did, and they were just rampant. Like, they're levels above anything that I've seen so far.
I mean, would we go as far here, Alan, as saying, did you applaud the last goal? I mean,
no, I didn't. No, I was very quiet. I watched
hands
the
were
game.
Just cold at that point. That's all that was. Hands up.
Watched the game from a pure football person, could see that it was a very good performance.
Mikey, the last goal, the 6th goal.
Yeah.
It's up there, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, it was exhibition stuff. It really was. And you could just sense that this is a side that are really in the groove, enjoying their football. And it sets them up incredibly well for, what is going to be a massive game, a monumental task to try and get something against Dortmund away from home. But they go into it in, fine fettle. They couldn't really be any better because confidence is high, competition for places, and it's a mouth-watering tie. Obviously, last season's finalists, they've lost a few key players, have moved on, but this is still a European heavyweight that they're coming up against here.
Yeah, maybe that's the acid test, and we're going to come back to that game, Borussia Dortmund against Celtic, later on. We've got another guest coming on later on in the programme who's going to give us the lowdown on Borussia Dortmund. I tell you what, though, Al, Nicholas couldn't look sharp again. I wonder if Michael's won over yet.
Yeah, we'll need to ask him that question. But I always thought from the start of this season it was about, can he be consistent? And I think he's shown that with his assists, with his goals. Michael was always on the fence with him for some reason, but again, came on, Falkirk changed the game. At the weekend, another really, really good performance again.
Yeah, Michael, for £3 million, right? Any question marks are starting to look like major bargains now.
I mean, look, he's doing well. He is, and if he continues on that trajectory, then I would agree with you there. But I'll stick by my guns in regards to not just about Nicholas Kuhn, but just that area of the park, that in that wide area, if they were able to, I would think come January, if they were able to get something, I still feel that they would maybe be looking in that area of the park, in the wide position.
But you're thinking, Mikey, more for Champions League fixtures than the league? Because what I've seen, like, they blow everybody away. And it's a position where I'm looking at and I'm not going, right, well, they're not struggling. For players out there.
I'm talking about Champions League, but I don't. Obviously, I didn't mean in terms of just to play in the Champions League. Obviously, we're talking about just increasing the quality level, because I mean, Celtic, the squad has got great depth, it's got great quality, and as we're already seeing, as you've just mentioned there, domestically, it's level above everything else. But I just feel like they're not. Even last season, and I know the manager, Brendan Rodgers, spoke about this before as well, there was key moments in key games that went against them, sending offs, penalties against them, that really turned, games. Confidence is then, taking a battering. But the overall game and the play, there was quite a few of them that it felt like they weren't a million miles away. And obviously, they're in a better place now. And I'm just meaning in terms of, I don't think it would take a lot, just maybe a key one or two additions to see Celtic genuinely competing in terms of moving into the next round, maybe the playoff or into the playoffs, trying to get into that knockout stages, which would be, a massive achievement for them. And I don't think it would take too much to be able to get there.
They've got some good fixtures ahead as well. Remember, Atalanta, Leipzig follow Borussia Dortmund. So loads of tests in Champions League terms. Just going back to St Johnstone briefly, because we'll see them again live in Premier Sports this weekend. Rangers against St Johnstone. They're still trying to get a manager in, Michael. There was a lot of talk of Tiernan Lynch before the game, and obviously he was someone they spoke to, but he doesn't want the job. That deal could be completed. Simo Valakari is the latest name to be linked. They need to get it done sooner rather than later. And it feels a wee bit like they've gone down the pecking list a wee bit here, the pecking order, if you like, and they're not getting their top targets.
No, definitely they're going down that pecking list. Yeah, it's not looking too smart.
I just about found the pecking order there.
But I mean, look, you're right. And it starts to feel a wee bit like what happened at Wraith in regards to, now, don't get me wrong, the sacking at Wraith was a joke. The sacking at St Johnstone wasn't. But in terms of trying to replace, the manager, clearly they're looking around. They're not being able to get the targets that they're wanting. Peter Leven's spoken about staying at Aberdeen. Scott Brown originally staying at Ayr. And now you've got Tiernan as well. And that's 3 out of 3 that were named who have all decided, actually, we're going to stay where we are. Doesn't look great. And it needs to happen quickly. You're right, especially off the back of a doing like that. It's a bit. I would imagine it's a bit of a concern. And when you throw into the mix the fact that obviously the chairman, and we spoke about this last week, best wishes to him, and hopefully he can recover as quickly as possible. The whole situation is far from ideal at the moment for St Johnstone.
Yeah, that really is the case. And they play Rangers next. Doesn't get any easier for them. Rangers, who defeated Hibs at the weekend. Al, were they convincing for you?
What are you laughing at, Al?
They huffed and puffed, if I'm honest. Look, this is off the back of a really good performance in Malmo.
Yeah.
Probably the best of the season. Couple of VAR decisions. I think that was a fantastic finish. As you see there, he's just onside. We know he's got this quality to come inside and finish. But I just expected them to then go and put their foot down. I think when Hibs get this penalty, which for me it is a penalty, Kukarevic, he gets on the ball. I think, well, it's not going in. I think if it goes past Suter, then Butland will save it, no problem. There, look, he steps up for the big moments. But I was worried thinking, going in at half-time, if that's one each, where does this end up? Because I thought Hibs then became the better team in the second half. Rangers struggled, and then you could feel the tension when you were watching the game just build in the stadium. And I kept on thinking about what Michael said to me last week, that as if they're just one step away from being in a crisis. That's the moment that it felt like, from off the back of an amazing performance to that was a worry.
Yeah, I guess
I was just going to say that it felt, I'm watching that game like I was talking about there, after all the positivity in Sweden against Malmo, had that result not ended up being 3 points, had it been a draw or a defeat, it would have been like the pressure just would have been intense, and it would have been so much negativity thrown right back onto the team. And, it wasn't far away from being that, because Hibs performed pretty well, but they didn't win the game, and Rangers did. And that ultimately is the most important thing. For example, I think back to when Philippe Clement came in, first of all, and there was a couple of games early on that they weren't great, but they got wins, and that momentum they built up, the head of steam that they built up, was incredible. You think back to the Hearts game at Ibrox when they were 1-0 down in injury time, they got a penalty kick, and then Tavernier scores late on as well. Or no, sorry, he crossed it, and I think it was, can't remember who scored the second goal, but Danilo perhaps late on. But Tavernier scores a penalty, he gets the cross, and you're talking about a turnaround in injury time. And had that not gone from early on, I think I was maybe second or third game in charge, then it stops the momentum. Whereas that on Sunday, that yesterday, felt quite similar, that forgetting about the performance, they needed the 3 points desperately.
But that's where I see it right now. It's 4 clean sheets in the bounce since the Celtic game, which was obviously disappointing. They are finding a way to win games. I said the Malmo has been the best this season. Look, It wasn't pretty on Sunday, but they won. And I think that's the main thing at this moment in time. Pick up the points, get the victories, build momentum, and they're keeping clean sheets. So it's not all negative.
Hamza Ygeman started.
Well done, Al.
He couldn't obviously play in Sweden, Al, could he? Because they didn't sort a visa out in time. Philippe Clement was furious about that. And no wonder. He can't afford to lose more players at the moment, and they didn't have that option. But he started at the weekend. Your thoughts on him? Because it wasn't long ago we were talking about, is he almost as good an option as Cyril Dessers on early viewing? Are you convinced now or less so?
Well, look, I was looking forward to seeing him start a game. After the Dundee United cameo, if you want, I thought he looked impressive. So I was looking forward to seeing what he would give you on a start, especially at Ibrox. I thought he was a little bit all over the place, instead of just being that focal point, being that number 9 that Dessers can be, and then working from there. I don't know if he was just desperate to get on the ball and try and make something happen, that he was maybe coming short, going wide, and then he was leaving that big area up top with very rarely anybody in it. But I think there is a player there. I think it's going to still take him time to settle, get used to everything. But at this moment in time, Dessers is the number 1 choice for me, and I think he showed that when he came on as well.
Just a couple more talking points on the game. I wanted to ask you as well about what is the best back four moving forwards against the best opposition. Look, Lyon next, as you know, is a tough game in the Europa League, but Casemiro looked quite steady against Malmo. Jefty obviously back in, could play.
You two are desperate to get the captain bulleted.
Whoa, Michael, do not.
Casemiro played left back. I'm not necessarily suggesting that. I'm only asking that there was defensive question marks, Al, not long ago. Michael was asking some of those defensive questions of Rangers. So what is the best back four moving forwards against the best opposition?
Don't shrug your shoulders. Don't shrug
your 4 names, or 5 if you want, whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, Casemiro I thought looked really good, really strong defensively. He'll drive forward. He's good on the ball.
So
I would see him more as a centre half, me personally. But I think that's the build on.
Because Suter's played well.
Oh, proper possibly. Look, I think it's a guy who he's done well. I think he's had his moments. I think you need competition within there. That's what he's there to give you. Yilmaz, we obviously knows out. Jefty, I think, going forward looks decent. And Tav will always play. I mean, that's just that he will. And look, and I think he should play, but there'll come a time where they'll need rotation there. I mean, I'm not getting away from that fact, but well, I don't think it's far off.
I think we just about got 4 names there, Mikey.
It's what you call absolutely being on a fence.
He didn't pick a back 4 at all. Right, listen, we're going to come back to Aberdeen later on. We're very aware that Aberdeen are playing very well and undefeated, top of the table as well, won all their games. But we're coming back to them later for a reason. So let's keep rolling forwards, Michael. Let's talk about the Jambos again. Has the rot stopped with the late goal against Ross County after Hale, by the way, scored another fantastic goal for Ross County? Yeah. But has the rot stopped, do you think, on a big week for the Jambos?
Well, I mean, first of all, what a goal this is from Ross County. Absolutely brilliant goal. Ronan Hale. I mean, there's just nobody stopping that. Very similar to Lawrence's goal at Ibrox there, that from Hale. And I mean, has the rot stopped? Well, they've stopped the run of defeats that they had with a point in injury time. It comes back to what you were talking about with St Johnstone in regards to the need to get somebody in fairly quickly. Obviously, there's European game on Thursday night, which is massive for the club, and I do think that when you look at that set of fixtures that Hearts have got, there's games there that are very winnable for this squad if they're settled with some confidence and belief. But they're a million miles away from that at the moment. And, you just worry that when things carry on for too long, it becomes more and more difficult to actually reverse it. So stop the rot? Barely, is what I would say. And the need for a manager is desperate. And the need to adjust the squad slightly in January is there.
Yeah, it's amazing though, Al, sometimes what a late goal can do for you, because most of the fans were filtering out that stadium and there was boos at the end anyway, but they're fearing the worst again. Shanklin needed the goal. He gets the goal. The fact it was late on, you just never know. Maybe it is the spark they need.
Yeah, well, they'll be hoping so. I just feel that if this was the Hearts team last season, Shanklin probably scores a hat-trick within that game. He had some decent opportunities. And by the way, don't forget that Akil Wright had an opportunity to make it 2. I mean, if that went in at the back post and you're thinking, he scored 2 in the last 2, he's going for his third, full of confidence, you'd expect him maybe to put it in. But look, they kept on going to the end. That was the biggest thing for me. They never gave up. They gave everything. Shanklin gets the goal, which I'm happy for, because, it's been difficult for him with everything that's happened and not getting on the score sheet. So hopefully that gives them the boost they need and the team to move forward and get better results.
The thing I was going to mention about the team that was picked, and there was some big calls there in regards to. I think Craig Halkett's been playing well. To drop him, I thought was harsh. I thought when you look at the team, there wasn't a single new addition this summer that was playing. Either the ones that haven't been getting a game still weren't, but then the ones that have been playing were dropped. Boateng, Penrice in particular. And you then start to, and this goes back to what we're talking about before. Where's the synergy at the club? Who's it that is making the decisions about who's been coming in? And was it purely down to the 3 that were in charge of the first team? Well, we just don't know. And obviously, no director of football. Graham Jones is coming in, but there's still an ambiguity around what that role is entailing. So I think for Hearts on the football side of things, there really needs to get a focal point and a head of the club, a manager, to come in and actually drive things forward. Because with a little bit of an adjustment, they are not a million miles away from being, fine.
Yeah, look, that was largely the same squad that walked to 3rd place last season, Michael. And they've got all these new additions. And you're right, Liam Fox went back to the tried and trusted. Andrew McKinlay, the chief executive, spoke last week. He was very clear, Michael, that Stephen Naismith had the final say in transfers. So he's absolutely laid that at his front door, if you like. He said he selected the players. He was the final say in all of those transfers. You imagine that would be the same. Any manager that wants that job now, and there are obviously many candidates, many people will be applying. Analytics are being used as well, Michael. You imagine that has to stay the same.
Well, you would think so, because I mean, look, ultimately, a manager lives and dies by those decisions in regards to the players that he has available and that he's bringing into the club. So, yes, but the more the point I'm making about is who's it that's been bringing those players to his attention, because there doesn't seem to be, a clear department there. It seems to be a little bit flaky, and some of the guys that have been brought in, positive, make a lot of sense. But I said from the day one of this season, there are gaping holes in that Hearts team that need to be added to.
But surely he's seen that. Like,
well,
that's the thing. Like, you've been saying, I know you've been saying it since day dot, because we've been listening to you, but
it's been hard. It's been hard at times, by the way. I love it. It's been hard.
No, I'm just joking. No, but surely he must see that. Like, he's been in charge of that team for a while now. He must have seen that there was areas that he needed to fix.
Well, but this was the point. Even as the last week of the transfer window was there, they got battered off Motherwell away from home, and talking about like, no, we're happy with the squad. We won't be doing any more business. And you're like, surely, I'm with you, Al. Like, surely you could see there was problems there in terms of the balance that needed to be addressed, but clearly they didn't.
Well, the future in recruitment is analytics anyway, Michael. Just to explain to people, is that different from biomechanics?
Just slightly, Daryl. Yeah.
Good.
It doesn't so much use all your body; it's just using your two eyes and your brain.
Excellent. I'm glad we.
As long as they're working.
The XG terms, I just gave you an open goal. To be fair, Michael. Right, come on, let's keep moving forwards. Let's get on to the next game. At Rugby Park, Kilmarnock 3, Dundee United 3. A little bit of entertainment here, Alan, and some really good goals as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was. Look, Kilmarnock, you've kind of got to. I feel for them a little bit, being kind of local as well, but it's been difficult with the European performance and stuff. Look, that was fantastic.
David Watson, brilliant.
Yeah, Derek McInnes makes a substitution at half-time and he makes such a massive impact. And then even here, you see Kennedy driving in and he's in the right place at the right time. What will kind of annoy him the most is you go up 3-1. I think there was, 10 minutes? I know there was maybe 9 minutes added on, but you just want to see the game out. And I don't know if they were just in such a rush and everything, try and get it over the line that they kind of struggled here. Look, O'Hara needs to do better in goal. That was never a foul for me. I know the ref gave the free kick at the time, but I mean,
this isn't a penalty, is it?
These goals. I thought that was really soft.
Derek McInnes must be going absolutely mental, Al, because some of the decisions have gone against him, and that is so soft as well.
Look, he's the wrong side. That's the only thing there. He sticks out a leg. Look at Stevenson, feels the contact and goes down. Look, I think it's harsh. I don't know what you're thinking, Michael, but look, you need more contact for me to go down in that fashion.
Yeah, 100%. For me, it's extremely harsh. And to go back to what you were just saying there, Daryl, about what's Derek McInnes going to be going mental. I mean, the concern for Derek McInnes is that when we're talking a lot about momentum and confidence with regards to other clubs, it's the same way obviously Kilmarnock, that the longer this season goes, that they haven't got points on the board and they haven't got victories. The theme becomes a little bit boring for punters. They become a bit sort of dismissive of what they regard as excuses, but a lot of it's valid. Early on the season, a lot of games, then it was like a spate of red cards, and a lot of this is self-inflicted, by the way, but they are things that have had a huge impact. And then you look at the last few performances, they've been good, they've been fine, but they've not picked up the wins. And that one there, you're saying to yourself, like, 3-1 up with, inside 10 minutes to go, and as Alan said, a big lot of injury time, but to concede a penalty like that, to lose all 3 points from the game with that penalty decision, that is just such a bitter pill to swallow.
John Moss is away, by the way. He's only just taken the job in Scotland as VAR assistant chief, I think it is, and he's off. Well, they actually need some help again, because if they're making decisions like that on the pitch, it doesn't bode well. Right, one more game.
Let's get Michael in.
Mikey, any chance we could draft you in?
Well, I tell you, here's a wee exclusive for you. I was lined up for one of these panels, but I couldn't make it, and that was my last communication with John. And then, about 2 days later, I saw he was off. Maybe I actually over the edge.
They weren't getting you in a panel, were they?
They were.
I can't believe. Wow, the depths have been hit. Al, if they're
could
asking
you imagine?
for help. Oh wow!
Imagine they'd be having meetings for hours. Can you imagine?
We struggle to get away. This is a half an hour show that lasts 45 minutes with him every week. We're struggling. Anyway, on to Fir Park. Motherwell have started well, haven't they, Michael? Another 3 points for them. And of course, we'll see St Mirren take the lead. But Lennon Miller again, we talked about him last week. He keeps delivering.
Yep. Well, he's a top-class player. I mean, first of all, it's a great finish. And getting St Mirren in front. But, you know, the facts are Lennon Miller is a top-class player. He's someone that has got a very bright future in front of him, as has the manager. Stuart Kettlewell, you know, and I'm not, before this gets taken any further, I'm not tipping him for the Hearts job. And
but you're tipping him for the Hearts job.
I was just about to say, the reason he won't be considered is because Hearts have had so many young managers that inevitably they're going to look somewhere else. But he is somebody who genuinely, when you look at, you know, the number of years that he's been around now, which are obviously in his formative years here, but he is a manager that I tell you gets the best out of what he's got. You look at his first season and he's got Van Veen and you think to yourself, how do you replace that? Then he's got Blair Spittle and Theo Bair that he's lost, goals and assists. And he's seamlessly moving on again. He's got a clear identity what he's wanting. He has a good communication, set up that the players are understanding what's expected from them, and he maximises the ability of what he's got available to him. I think he's a manager who's got a bright future.
We're talking about Derek McInnes would be furious. Stephen Robinson's maybe not had the best of luck at the start of this season either.
That's nonsense.
That tango at the end there.
I was desperate to ask. I didn't want to interrupt you, Mike. I was desperate to ask what you thought. I kind of got the first one when he blocks O'Donnell. If you remember, like, kind of takes him out round about the halfway line. You can kind of take it. But that one, like, he gets the ball and then just like stands his foot. But he actually lifts it. There's no malice in it or anything. He actually lifts his leg kind of back up.
Here it is again. I mean, if this leads to a red, I know it's a second yellow, but you two would never have been on the park.
Darryl, you took the words out of my mouth. Honestly, if I was still playing, you'd be getting sent off all the time. I mean, seriously, like for that,
it's
that's
outrageous.
not a second yellow.
Outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. I actually got sent off at Fir Park for the most ludicrous.
But
right?
was it? Let's get it.
No, it was. Right? And I tell you, this is how ludicrous the system was at the time as well. And you talk about 2 yellow cards, right? I've been an advocate of 2 yellow cards here. For the second one, I think VAR should be able to get involved.
I kind of get it.
Second yellow card. Now, I got sent off. It was the most ridiculous sending off. I was walking up the tunnel and I kicked a loose ball.
I've heard about this. Did you not fall?
No.
Is that a different one?
Hamilton, mate, don't you worry. We've got that for later in the season.
Yeah.
I kicked the ball at the tunnel and I was walking into the changing room and it opens up a wee round to the right so nobody could see. And I think I maybe punched or I kicked the board and went into the changing room. And we got called into the referee's office after the game and he gave me another yellow card. We appealed the sending off, right, which got rescinded, but it got downgraded to a yellow. And then they said, but because you got another yellow after the game, it's still a red card.
Brilliant.
That's brilliant.
I tend to agree with the decision to send you off, to be fair. I don't know what happened, but I tend to agree. And by the on the subject of you getting sent off, it's a perfect time to bring our next guest in because we've got Derek Ray, the legend that is Derek Ray. Let's get Derek Ray on the programme. I think he's coming in from Germany. Are you in Germany, Dill?
Yes, I'm in the great city of Cologne. Hi, Darryl. Hi, Alan. Hi, Michael.
Oh, great voice. Brilliant.
He's got the voice. But what about memories of Michael being sent off? Do you remember, Derek?
9.
Well, I do remember actually. No, doch. Because it's funny that Darryl was there as well, obviously, because we were both working for ESPN UK, and the very first game on that channel in 2009, which happened to be at Tannadice, and it was Dundee United against Hearts. And Mikey's laughing because there was an incident in the second half that saw Mikey foul Scott Robertson, I think it was, from memory.
What a memory.
I know, I was just thinking that.
And Mikey got a straight red. And I think, Mikey, it was your first game as Hearts captain on a permanent basis, I think, wasn't it? Was that right?
Wow.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'll go by whatever you say.
Honestly, Mikey, dirty player. I didn't think you were this bad, but every story is about you getting sent off.
They're all
I'd have stripped him of the captaincy right after that, Alan. I mean, that's Bruno Fernandes territory. It's poor, that, isn't it? Anyway, listen, Derek, lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. I know you're probably busy because you're in Germany all the time working these days. I know you're on all sorts of podcasts. There's a lot of young viewers that watch, because we're live on YouTube, by the way. A lot of young viewers that watch. They won't remember you as a Scottish commentator. No. They'll just remember you in the computer game now. The voice of the computer game. Is that right?
Oh, it's hilarious, because obviously I worked with you on Scottish football, commentated on Mikey, Allen, and so many other players during that period from 2009 for almost a decade. But if you're sort of in the age group of, say, 12 to 18, you have no idea that I ever did that, or even that I even commentate on live football here in Germany and in other places. So I often get asked, have you ever commentated on a real game, on an actual game? Because I only know you from this video game, which used to be called FIFA, and of course now is EAFC 25, and has just been launched for the new year. So it's sort of, changed my professional life quite a lot, because to a certain generation, I am the video game guy.
And he's also on commission every time he mentions it, by the way. The pounds and the dollars just keep on coming in. Right, what have we got you doing?
It's changed his career, because now he doesn't need to work.
Yes.
I wish.
Listen, it's a good gig. It's a good gig. Right, while we've got you as well, Derek, I want to talk to you about the Dons, because you've seen them in person this season. What a start under Jimmy Tilleen.
Unbelievable. As people may know, I'm from Aberdeen, and it's no secret I grew up going to Pittodrie every week, and it's been a long time, hasn't it? It's been a while. You've got to go back, I think, almost a decade to the time when they had that great run at the start of the season. They couldn't sustain it, but here we have in Jimmy Tilleen, a manager who is coming up with the right tunes. And I did say back in the springtime, there was some scepticism, I know, not amongst Aberdeen fans. I think they were pretty much always behind Dave Cormack and the football board.
It was mostly Michael and Alan, to be fair.
Well, and listen, it's a game of opinions, and everybody, listen, Michael and Alan played the game. I never did, and respect everybody's opinion. But just as somebody who works away from Scotland, I'd heard this name, Tilleen, a year or so before from people in Germany and in other places. And, he had a track record of playing to a concept, which was, and I'll make no apologies for using a German word here, gegenpressing football, which, is the sort of football associated with Klopp at Liverpool, did that in Germany prior to that. But essentially it means, less emphasis on possession, more about a coordinated press high up the pitch, forcing mistakes from the opposition, being very direct and vertical on the short route to goal. Now, I'm not saying that that's what he's done immediately, because you can't do that with the group of players necessarily that you inherit. You have to attune the squad to what you want to do. But it's very clear he's made an impact. And what has impressed me most of all, guys, is that he's getting a tune out of players who previously were either on the outside looking in, or, Bizarre in there, who was away out on loan, sort of forgotten about. Pape Habib Gueye, what he's doing, and I missed the game at the weekend. So you look at all these aspects and you think, there's a lot going on, that's right. But it's early days. Nobody is getting too carried away. Nobody's thinking, this is, a
oh, come on. Carried away.
You can hear it in the voice. Getting carried away.
Listen, a little bit excited.
I think we can see the goals from the weekend as well. Yeah. Some of the signings look really good. Kevin Nisbet coming in, Topi Keskinen, who's been a standout international level, and for the Dons this season, Derek, are scoring goals. And maybe Aberdeen didn't hit the heights of some of the other performances in this match, but there's a resilience about them. They held on, Derek, and you saw the scenes at the end of the game. When you've got the Red Army behind you, what a difference it makes.
It does, and I think everybody would agree, whether you're an Aberdeen fan or not, you would agree that at times we've missed that in Scottish football, because, it's the third largest city, it's a one-club area, and, you do want Aberdeen to be part of that story. And what we're seeing is the fans very much behind the team. And it's interesting, looking at those highlights, you can see there the imprint of Tilleen. You can see the goals, especially that Shinnie winning the ball there and then quickly forward. And I think it was, 5 passes later, they've scored. So that's an indication, I think, of the football that Aberdeen will try to play more and more under Tilleen, and the fans are loving it.
They did it straight for the first game. We did the first game against Queen of the South in the Premier Sports Cup, and you could see it straight away. And you talk about some of the guys that were obviously were not getting a sniff before, but they are now. primarily guys that have a bit of pace and that they play at the top end of the park. And a lot of it is quite apparent because Jimmy Tilleen has got a clear idea of what he's wanting. He's got a clear idea of what he's looking for. And a lot of those guys, although they might have shortcomings, they certainly have attributes that fit into what he's trying to do. And the one I was wanting to ask you though, Derek, you were talking about how you'd heard about Jimmy Tilleen about a year before, and you were hearing it from people in Germany in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, what is there any? I know you're a very extremely well connected guy, Derek. Is there any insight into how he's come on to Aberdeen's radar? What happened there?
I don't know the exact sort of method by which the contact was made. I think there was an interest from Aberdeen, even going back to when Barry Robson got the job. I think he'd been on the radar there. So, I think the sporting structure is good at Aberdeen. They do their homework and they work according to, you mentioned analytics and methodology earlier. They have their way of doing that and keeping track of people. But I think it came to the point, and this is just my theory, I don't know this, but I think when Neil Warnock was in charge very briefly, and it wasn't a great success, as we know, I think that almost fell on the category of, okay, let's bring somebody in who will, how can I put it? Let's look over here while we're away doing something else, And I think the homework was being done, and Aberdeen have brought in, I think it's been widely reported, some consultants from Germany. I know them, and
come on, take the credit, Bill.
No, it's not directly to do with me at all. But I've met Bernhard Peters, who's involved in that, and his group, and they do a really good job of sort of understanding how.
Did you connect Dave Cormack with the Germans? This is what we want to know.
Not directly, no. But let's just say we have mutual friends. Let's just say that.
Listen, you can revel in the success. Go on, Al.
No, I'm interested to see their upcoming fixtures and results, what they will be, because I feel like they've done really well up to this time. I mean, 12 games unbeaten is quite incredible, but you've got Rangers coming, Celtic semi-final. But I think, so we're talking about Celtic and the test that they've got midweek. I'm interested to see how far this Aberdeen team can go, and we'll see a lot within those games, I think.
I thought Al was about to offer Derek a director of football role at Ibrox.
Do you know anyone else that can help?
But Derek, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Aberdeen have got a real opportunity now to really kick on this season.
I think so, and I think I'd be interested to know what everybody else thinks about this. I think that you strike while the iron's hot if you're in Aberdeen shoes, and they already have a really good coach, a manager, if you want to call him manager, but the continent would be a coach. But again, I come back to the German model. In Germany, you always have a very strong sporting division led by a pretty high-profile sporting director. And I'm a great believer that here's Tilleen, he's done what he's done without really having had recruitment to his satisfaction. He hasn't had a chance to do that yet. But if Aberdeen were to bring in somebody who could be that really high-profile sporting CEO, that's the term that's used in Germany, who could give them another advantage, somebody who can pick up the phone and talk to Bayern or talk to, prominent clubs around the world. Is that the sort of thing that they should be thinking about now? Because here's the thing, I was not name dropping here, but I was last week with the CEO of Leverkusen, obviously the double winners in Germany, Fernando Caro. And I asked him about Xabi Alonso. And I said, what's your, obviously people thought he would go to Liverpool or Real Madrid at the end of last season, and he didn't. And he said, we never stop talking about who the next coach is going to be. Even now, we know Xabi Alonso is not going to be here, for in 3-4 years' time, probably. So what we do is we identify we have a list. And Aberdeen's difficulty could be that Tilleen becomes so successful that somebody else might want to take him on board. So I think it's incumbent upon Aberdeen to, as I said, strike while the iron's hot, take stock of what they're doing. It's all going really well. For me, it would be a mistake to say, okay, it's not broken, so there's nothing to fix. I think this is when you push on.
So forget about going to Ibrox. You're going to Pittodrie.
Yeah.
I was starting to worry there. I
was just thinking, Al, I think, if there is a good German sporting director out there, I'm sure Derek could put them in touch. I think he could be the third broker here again.
Yeah, I think there's an opening available there, so hopefully he knows one or two.
Well, I think there's probably things going on in the background that Derek won't give us the full story on, but interesting thoughts. Listen, while we've got you here as well, because I know we're approaching 40 minutes, and if I go past 45, they cut us off, Derek, so we can't keep going on too much longer. I want to ask you about Borussia Dortmund, because you saw the Celtic goals at the weekend. We saw them earlier on in this show. They are exceptional at the moment in domestic terms. They were brilliant against Slovan Bratislava, match day 1. This is the acid test of the season so far, if you like. Are they playing a Borussia Dortmund team that are potentially there for the taking?
Yes, potentially. I think no doubt about that. Will it happen in reality? We don't know. I would use the word schizophrenic to describe Dortmund. And in fact, in the newspapers today, the main headline in Kicker magazine was balancing act. Dortmund are trying to perform this balancing act because attacking-wise, they can be very good. If you watched the game against Bochum on Friday, they came back from 2-0 down, could have been 3-0 down, probably should have been, found a way to win, and they can do that. So that's the warning for Celtic, is that even though you think there's a glass jaw quality, and there is about them, and there's not stability at the back. And Sebastian Kehl, the sporting director, was saying just in the build-up to this game, one of our problems is as they say, the rest defence in Germany, basically meaning your defensive structure straight after you've lost the ball. That has been all over the shop. And he wants one midfielder at a minimum to be there to help the defenders, because watching the video, you can see that far too often the centre-backs are left exposed and chasing, especially against fast players. That's a problem. So, yeah, I think Celtic have a chance on this one. Again, I don't think Celtic fans should think, it's going to be easy. Not that you would against a team that got to the Champions League final last season. The only thing I would say about Dortmund is I've yet to see an identity. Nuri Sahin is the coach now. He was the assistant coach brought in January to help Edin Terzic, the previous coach, who's no longer there. Nuri Sahin, very respected player, but I don't really see his thumbprint on the team yet. It's still not all that convincing. What I would say is there is individual quality. So watch out for Karim Adeyemi, who's left-footed, very fast, usually plays on the right, can also play on the left. And Serhou Guirassy, who's just joined in the summer from Stuttgart, 28 goals in 28 Bundesliga matches last season. He's the complete striker. He's somebody who has a physical presence. He can score, can play with his back to goal, can bring others in, and has started really well with Dortmund. So, yeah, there are areas to be worried about, but I think there are areas that Celtic can exploit.
Yeah, Pascal Gross has joined as well, obviously from Brighton. He looks as if he's going to fit in. He was a Dortmund fan, I believe, so he's delighted to join the club. But you're right, there has been a fair bit of change, and a lot of experience did leave during the summer. Hummels away, Royce obviously retiring as well. Füllkrug, as you know, went to West Ham. Yeah. So there has been a bit of change. It's not the same team that made the Champions League final for sure, is it?
No, because Hummels was, been there most of his career, been at Bayern as well, but big chunk of his career. Royce, a living legend, gone off to play in the United States. But they almost had to end that era, I think. They had to try to turn the page. Now, the difficulty is they brought Waldemar Anton in from Stuttgart, playing in central defence. He's made a really wobbly start. Nico Schlotterbeck, you'll see, you watch him, lovely posture, left-footed, strokes it around, but he has a mistake in him all the time. You can see, he sometimes gets a bit too carried away with his own playing ability. And I think the fullbacks are ordinary for Dortmund. I don't think that they are brilliant. Watch out, Niklas Süle might end up playing at right back in this game, and he's really a centre back. People sometimes make fun of him. They think he's really slow. He's actually one of the fastest players in the Bundesliga, but from a standing start, looks a bit slow playing at right back.
So you're not a fan of Ryerson at right back?
I think he's solid, Mikey. I think he's decent, but I don't think he's. If you compare him with you can play right or left, which is obviously a big advantage. But I think if you compare him to other fullbacks in the Bundesliga, I would say he's average.
And you know, I was just going to ask you about Mats Hummel. I get and I understand when they're looking to change things and turn the page with a certain generation, but with a young manager like Nuri Sahin, was there not a train of thought about keeping one of those experienced guys around to try to help a transition? or was it definitely that Mats Hummels was finished?
I think the problem with Hummels is that, super defender, and we saw that during the Champions League campaign last season, but he always had an opinion, and it sometimes wasn't a helpful opinion. He was the sort of player who would always appear on TV and say something that would just be a bit of a fly in the ointment. And I think
they felt... Terzic, didn't he, Derek?
Yeah, on a couple of occasions with some of his comments. And so I think they felt Shaheen himself is, he's supposed to be this figure who commands respect based on his playing abilities. He'd been there. He'd really been given 6 months to identify the problems as the assistant to Terzic. And you look at the points total, and it's respectable. But I've seen them against Heidenheim, problems against Stuttgart, real problems, lost 5-1. And then against Bochum, it was an escape act, but they were fortunate. So, this is going to be a great game. I think there'll be a lot of goals in it. And I wouldn't expect a runaway at all for Dortmund. I think Celtic have a chance.
All right, we've crept into 45 minutes, which proves they don't cut us off, Derek. But we're there. We're there. Right, so just I better warn Kev, the producer in the background here, okay? Because you might have to ride the levels here on the sound. But just to see us out, Derek, just imagine Aberdeen go all the way, win the league. You're the man commentating the game. Who scores the winning goal? How would you deliver it? Do it for the kids that love the video game. Don't do it for us.
All right, so let me think about... Okay, here we go. All right.
He's going.
In the dying seconds... The end of this season, which for Aberdeen has been nothing but a triumph. And now they all wait for the final whistle. And there it goes. Scotland turns granite. Pure granite grit comes through. And for the first time since the 1980s, Aberdeen, yes, Aberdeen are the champions of Scotland.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. He's delivered there on a dime. Absolutely magnificent. Derek, thank you very much. Listen, we'll let you get back to your German night. Michael, Alan, thank you very much as well. Great to see you all. We're back next Monday. Thank you for watching. See you very soon.
The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.